What historical event 100% reads like a time traveler went back in time to alter history?
Edgar Allan Poe writes about an event 40+ years in the future. Link: basically, Poe writes about 4 people who are starving at sea, draw straws, and kill and eat the loser, cabin boy Richard Parker. 40-odd years later 4 people are adrift at sea in a lifeboat, one drinks seawater and goes into a coma. When they draw straws for who will be eaten, the coma guy gets the short straw in a development that surprises no one. And so the 3 other men kill and eat the cabin boy. Richard Parker. Seriously. When Andrew Jackson's assassin attempted to shoot him, both of his flintlock pistols misfired. Andrew Jackson had to be restrained after almost beating the assassin to death with his cane. The 2 flintlocks were examined after the incident and found to be in good condition.
I don't care who it is, Obama, Trump, Biden, anyone. I want to see a president beat an assassin with a cane.
There was a shipwreck in 1664, a shipwreck in 1785, and a shipwreck in 1820. Each had one survivor. Each survivor was named Hugh Williams.
A Belgian businessman was instrumental to the Manhattan Project's success. Realizing uranium's importance, he shipped 1,200 tons of it to Staten Island. When Lieutenant Colonel Nichols contacted him, he simply responded, "You can have the ore now. It is in New York. I was waiting for your visit, Link."
My favorite bit of trivia about the Manhattan Project, Link. Apparently there were several scientists who worked in fields that would be useful for developing a nuclear bomb that, over the previous year, had suddenly relocated to Los Alamos. These scientists, geeks that they were, subscribed to *Astounding and, with the move, updated their mailing address to a little town in the middle of nowhere so their science fiction stories would arrive without interruption.
I would say there is significant evidence for Del Castro. Every single assassination attempt failed, sometimes because of wildly miscellaneous circumstances, including a sabotaged diving suit that somehow got miraculously switched with someone else, who ended up drowning in his place. Dude holds the world record for over 600 attempts, I believe.
Or the CIA agents reporting we're making poo up to cover up that they spent the entire time drinking rum, smoking cigars and getting laid.
Franz Ferdinand's assassination. It was so much happenstance, shenanigans, and tomfoolery that it's like a special achievement in a Hitman game.
Bomb that fails to explode. Generals don't want troops lining the streets to protect the Duke cause their uniforms weren't clean. Assassin not sure what's going on decides to go to a sandwich shop on the corner to get some food. Everyone decides how to get the Archduke out of town but neglect to tell the driver where to go, so when he doesn't turn, all the generals start yelling at him and he pops the clutch, throwing said generals off running boards, and the assassin just walks up and pops them both dead.
During the War of 1812, seems like a time traveler with weather control capabilities started a freak tornado that effectively ended the British occupation of Washington. More British soldiers were killed by the tornado's flying debris than by the guns of the American resistance.
If time travelers have weather control capabilities, definitely also the Spanish Armada, twice.
Da Vinci. The madman designed a tank in the 1500s.
However, he designed the gearbox backwards to make any real version's wheels lock up and fail. He also designed a 12-barrel gun carriage, which is basically the machine gun on steroids, the early parachute, the double hull, the use of concentrated solar power, and a calculator. The man was several centuries ahead of his time.
The Russian writer Fyodor Dostoevsky was sentenced to death by firing squad, and just as they were preparing the groups to be shot, a messenger came with a letter from the Tsar, forgiving them, and the sentence was changed to prison labor. He later went on to write some of the most influential novels of all time.
In school we learned that he was actually never going to get shot. The Tsar just wanted to scare him and others like him. It was planned like that from the beginning.
Tesla's AC polyphase system. 1 minute, we're in the Stone Age of electrical distribution. And the next, Buffalo, New York is being powered by the alternating current being generated at Niagara Falls by Tels's Genius system.
They were considering transmitting power from Niagara to Buffalo by pneumatic pipes or ropes and pulleys. I shudder to think about what that system would have entailed.
Tsutomu Yamaguchi. Survived both the bombings at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Reads like a satirical time traveler story where the protagonist screws up his dates.
And he lived a really long life afterwards, too.
Fidel Castro's assassination attempts being dodged is so unrealistic, really. He dodged about *600* that it feels like a time traveler went back and foiled every single one of them.
That time traveler sure had a hard time going back and forth in time every time Fidel Castro didn't die, just to get update info for the next attempt.
Not really an event, but more of a couple of subtle, though significant, influences. Eli Whitney, the guy who invented the cotton gin, helped cement cotton as a major cash crop, which drove even further demand for slaves. He, infamously, made no money off the development, as it was a simple and easily copied machine, but cotton helped drive the economic growth of the South. Frustrated, he eventually abandoned efforts to profit off it and went into the industrial world, where he was a small contributor to the development of higher precision machining and design, particularly for firearms. This in turn helped drive the growth of industry in the North, which was a major factor in giving the North the might and materiel to defeat the South. Eli Whitney inadvertently helped start and end the Civil War decades before it happened. What time traveler was giving that guy advice and pulling strings around him, eh?
There have been at least 40 attempts to kill Hitler after he had risen to power. Sometimes they failed because the assailant couldn't get close enough, at least that's what they said afterwards. But a lot of them failed because of reasons that seem plausible if it happens once but begin to smell fishy when you look at all of them. Elsa's bomb went off as planned, but Hitler, who loved to hold speeches, had finished early that day. Trescow's bomb failed because at first he, as a high-ranking officer of the Wehrmacht, couldn't get his hands on anything that goes boom for months, and when he finally had some, the bomb didn't explode. Talk about German efficiency. Stauffenberg could have just shot the bastard. His attempt was part of a general upheaval after all, so his chances to survive that day would have been not that bad. But he planted a bomb because that went so well the last times. And so on. We will never know why, but somebody believed or even knew that a premature death of Hitler would have been even worse for the world than what we got. Or it was a wereaboo who wanted to see a tiger too. Who knows? Edit. I'm a bit surprised by the number of people who are trying to explain to me that I'm wrong. Like, dudes, I'm open for the idea that time traveling might not be real. ... Yet.
My favorite failed attempt was when a Wehrmacht general was going to kill him with a suicide bomb. The general was in charge of a weapons depot, and Hitler was coming to inspect the equipment. The plan was to set the timer for a few minutes, then at the end of the tour grab Hitler in a bear hug and they'd both blow up. For some unknown reason Hitler was in a hurry. He sped through the tour in just a couple minutes, leaving before the bomb went off. The general had to run to the bathroom and race to disarm the bomb, saying he managed it with only seconds to spare.
If you read up on his life, you'll find there are so many times Adolf Hitler almost died, but somehow survived, that makes me think there is a time traveler war going on. A faction trying to kill Hitler, because it's Hitler, and a faction preventing his death, because the guy who would replace him was even worse than Hitler. Mendeleev, who created the periodic table, was struggling to order the elements in a specific order, pattern. He then was able to order them like we see today after having a dream, where all the elements fell into place, even leaving gaps for elements that hadn't yet been discovered. I know it's not exactly a major historical event, but it's been the foundation of science for over a century, but when I first heard I thought it was a bit suspicious how it all fell into place. Edit. Whoa, this is literally probably my second comment ever and it got 2.3k upvotes at this moment in time. Thank you everyone.
The American Civil War's first real battle was at Bull Run on land belonging to a Mr. McLean. After that he said, "Screw this. I'ma move to the country and avoid this war." He moved to Appomattox Courthouse, VA, where Lee surrendered to Grant, in the McLean's living room.
Later, Wilmer McLean was heard to have said, "The war began in my front yard and ended in my front parlor." Link.
Stanislav Petrov was a Soviet lieutenant known as the man who saved the world. Tensions were riding between the Soviet Union and the United States, so on the 26th of September in 1983, he was on duty for a nuclear early warning system. The system detected multiple missiles launched by the United States, but Petrov broke protocol, following his instincts by choosing not to report the danger to his higher-ups. The missiles turned out to be a false alarm, as he had thought, and, as Petrov's title suggests, he very well may have saved the world that day. Saving the world just off of a hunch definitely seems like something a time traveler might do. Sus. Edit, change the 16th to the 26th.
I like to think it's more his humanity coming out. He knew it was probably fake. If it was true and he hit the button, then both sides including him died. If he didn't hit the button, he still died. If he was wrong, he was dead. So
A book that predicted the sinking of the Titanic. Futility. The Wreck of the Titan, link.
Futility might sound like Robertson was some kind of Nostradamus at first. But scrutinizing everything, it doesn't hold up. The route, passenger routes, as opposed to cargo routes, from England to NY, or Western Europe to Eastern US, was the most popular transit lanes of the day. If you were writing a story about an experience on a passenger ocean liner, that's the route you'd pick. The time of year. Icebergs were a notorious hazard in the early spring. It wouldn't make sense to make it any other time of year because icebergs aren't a danger, or not nearly as much, outside of that time frame. The size and speed of the vessels. Although it didn't exist when Futility was written, ships that big that could travel at that speed was already the next big thing that is coming. The next step in ocean liner engineering was already being planned. It was just a matter of who could establish the infrastructure to build such a ship and when. Turbines already existed and it was already in the imminent future that they'd be used in ship propulsion. The names Titan, Titanic. The world was in the midst of an industrial revolution, and using Titan, Titanic as a noun or adjective to describe something tremendously big and powerful was common in the parlance of the time. Ford, Rockefeller, and even Astor, who died on Titanic, were known as Titans of industry. Was Futility a good book? Spoiler warning, greater than. I think it's worth reading. The futile part of Futility was how a man that considered himself and his whole life a failure embraced a moral obligation to be a paternal role model and a comfort to a child. He took on that role despite the child being a symbol of how much of a failure he was. He did so knowing the likelihood that neither of them would survive. It was futile, but he did it anyways. Less than. The targeted demographic for sales of Futility was people of 1898 making choices and decisions. The intent of Futility was to show those people how decisions they make now could affect them in 10 to 15 years. So, it would make sense to use general engineering forecasts of what life, particularly an ocean liner, would be in 10 to 15 years as a background. Much like the ship Titanic wasn't the point of Cameron's movie, obviously the love story of Jack and Rose was the point. The point of Futility wasn't the Titan. It was the main character, Roland, doing the right thing even if the circumstances made it seem to be a futile effort.
The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Somebody throws a grenade at his car, and it blows up behind him. That's the first incident of time travel, stopping the assassination. Later, as he goes back, the driver realizes that he's on the same route where the grenade was thrown, and they try to turn around. The whole procession of cars stalls, and a guy who just happened to be sitting there, goes over and shoots him. That's a second time traveler, fixing what the first had done. Since the whole thing lit off World War I and led to the rise of Hitler and then World War II, I kind of wonder what Ferdinand would have started if he hadn't been killed. It must have been pretty bad for them to send a second time traveler to put Nazi Germany back into the timeline.
I'm 100% for the theory that a time traveler foiled the assassination, went back to the future, found out it had resulted in aliens invading us or something, went back in time again and fixed it.
It's also possible that without World War I happening right then, World War II started later, after a bunch of German scientists already made certain discoveries. And when the Nazis took over, they already had both rockets and atomic bombs. Time traveler gets back, looks at the Nazi flag on the wall, and says, well, pooh. I wonder if I can catch that Princip guy at the cafe.
Richard Lawrence tried to assassinate Andrew Jackson, but both of the pistols he attempted to fire at him misfired. Then Jackson proceeded to beat this fellow with his cane. While the assassin was not a time traveler, one certainly could have sabotaged his pistols with a spritz of water on each. Link.
I remember this comment link.
This was the plot to the popular children's video game, Jumpstart 3rd Grade. Bratty girl of a wealthy inventor fails her school's history quiz and so sends 20 of her father's robots back in time to make her history quiz answers accurate. Stuff like Copernicus discovering that the bratty girl is actually at the center of the solar system, basketball being created so snowmen had something to play, Olympics winners getting a diamond tiara, etc.
The false alarm that almost turned the Cold War from a sleeping volcano into the eruption of Mr. Helena link. This event could easily have resulted in the highest casualties in the shortest time period in human history. Actually, forget human history, the greatest mass death since the extinction of the dinosaurs. One man was at the helm making that decision, and it seems like one of the few points in human history where by some slim sliver of luck or fate, a great disaster was averted. Time travel vibes like whoa.
Stanislav Petrov, the man who saved the world. He only died 4 years ago. They should have given him the Nobel Peace Prize IMO.
On Christopher Columbus's first voyage, there are reports of strange lights following them as they approach land. I think these are time tourists going back to watch it all happen.
Asterisk asterisk Nikola Fukkin Tesla. Asterisk asterisk. Earth was going to be torn apart by a rogue black hole, so Nikola came back to a time when he could get the materials to build a death ray, save the Earth ray, but wouldn't have to answer to anyone about building it. He then shot it right through the Earth, creating the Tunguska event, which altered the path of the black hole. We all lived. He went mad and died because he couldn't go back to his present. God, no wonder he was such a clean fetishist. Imagine if you had to go back and live in 1908, before antibiotics and the FDA.
Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.